Hey Magic fans, and welcome back to Captain Clyde's MTG. This is the Captain speaking. We're back for another set of Strixhaven spoilers. We got some good ones today. So let's get the boring stuff out of the way. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends and family, support the channel. We really do appreciate it. Now, with that out of the way, let's actually get some cards. So the first card that we have here uh, is obviously Korean, I think. But regardless, it says that it is the Impassionate Dust Speaker. So when this card attacks, you may put an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. If you do, you get to exile top two cards from your deck, and you may play them this turn. So it's a good uncommon, but it has so many things that need to be met, like a guard in the graveyard, then flip two cards over, have mana open, and it has to attack. I think it's going to be fine for draft, but this is probably not going to see any kind of standard play whatsoever, especially at 5 mana for a 3/4. Probably not going to happen. So, moving on. The next one we have here is Intervention of the Dragon. It is a rare, 4 mana sorcery, 2 red, 2 colorless. It says you exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, and you deal X damage to all non-dragon creatures, which X being the cost of the instant or sorcery card that you exile. Also, any card that is dealt damage or dies this turn is exiled, being creatures, and Intervention of the Dragon is also exiled. So, yeah, 4 mana, kind of a board sweep if it's a big enough instant or sorcery in your graveyard. It only hits non-dragons. It's okay for red. It doesn't deal with planeswalkers, so I don't think it's going to be as good as what it is, but it might be a decent rare for some drafting. And depending on the format, it may be a thing, but I'm not seeing it right now. So, moving on, I think it's probably going to be a bulk rare. The next one here is we have the Krock Shepherd. I think it's how you say that. It's your basic 5 mana 3/3. It has Magecraft, and the Magecraft on the Magecraft is if you cast an instant or sorcery, you trigger Magecraft. So whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it puts a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So for 5 mana, not going to be something we see in standard. However, this could be a powerhouse in draft. Because 5 mana is not hard to get to, 3/3 is not too bad. And if you've got removal spells or anything else that are instants and sorceries, this thing's going to get huge. So I think it's going to be a sweet draft card. But other than that, probably far as it goes. So moving on to the next one. Here we have the Fractal Summoning. This is a sorcery lesson. It is a common, but it is a lesson, so you can get it out of your sideboard or what have you. You get +X fractal counters when you make this. So you make a 0/0, and it gets +1/+1 counters equal to X in the casting cost. So for 4 mana, you get a 2/2. Not really big on this one. I don't see this getting any play. I mean, it might be a thing in a draft if you really need a creature, but yeah, this just isn't good. So next, we move on. We have, and I don't even know how to say this in English, Oggyar, Ogyar, Battle Seer, I guess. We'll go with that. So for 5 mana, you have a 3/4 haste with the ability to tap and scry 1. Yep, trash. If you're desperate for a creature in draft, here you go, guys. So moving on. So here we have actually an English card for a change. The Tendon Ink Caster. So for 5 mana, you get a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Not shabby. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So if you put this on this creature, it becomes a 3/3. As long as you can swing with it, you're going to deal 4 damage. For 5 mana, not too shabby. It may be good to counter with something else, but if you've got a deck full of counter creatures that +1/+1 counters, and you're splashing black for this one thing, and you have like 3 creatures in your deck that have counters on them, and then all of a sudden this hits the field and you swing with the team and deal 3 damage to your opponent and gain 3 life, could be a winner. So once again, standard playable, not at all. Draft playable, could be a powerhouse. So moving on. So we have our first mythic of the spoiler, Ecological Appreciation. So you have a green and 2 colorless and X. It says you search your library and graveyard for up to 4 creature cards with different names that each have mana value X or less, and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of them, shuffle the 2 chosen cards into your library, and put the rest onto the battlefield, and you exile this card, basically. So, let's see here. Different names that each have a mana value X or less. So, to get anything wild or worthwhile, you'd have to cast for, let's say, 6. That would get you 4 different cards that cost 3 or less. So it is green, so in a ramp deck, this could be a serious contender for something special. I mean, if you get a big one of these off, I mean, you could get things like Ugin, Giant Planeswalkers. I mean, and if you whip out 4 different Planeswalkers, because it says library and graveyard, so, you know, pull your Nisses out of your graveyard and all the other stuff they've already dealt with. Oh, it says creatures, my bad. But anyway, pull them big creatures out of your graveyard they've already dealt with, out of your deck, and then let them choose their own death. I think this could be a thing. I see it more geared toward like EDH style decks. It might be a one of in maybe a green ramp deck or a green stompy style deck. Time will tell. It really depends on the rest of the set comes out and how good the creatures are at what mana cost levels, we'll say. Could be really good in white. I mean, for 3, you cast this for 6 in a white deck and go in there and get a Skyclave Apparition and the new 3/1 Dalmarosa card and God knows what else. And yeah, you could put some serious hurt on your opponent. So I think this might be a thing. It's definitely going to be a thing in an elf deck. And oh, good God. Not standard, modern, legacy. There we go. Yeah, in legacy, cast this for 4. Go get 4 elves. Seems like the game's probably over. So this could be a thing. Might be worth a little bit of money. Moving on. So Xiaomi, Kondricks Prodigy. So a blue and a green for a 1/2. 1 mana tap. Put a land card from your hand on the battlefield tapped. It's already not too bad. 4 mana tap. Draw a card. If you control 8 or more lands, draw 2 cards instead. So it dies easy, so I'm okay with that. But if you get to 8 land with this in a ramp deck and you tap this for 4, or heck, even if you just get to 4 mana and just start drawing cards off of it, like, I mean, it lets you put lands on the battlefield. It's legendary. This might be something a little more powerful than an uncommon, but it's really going to depend how the blue-green cards come out to really make this worthwhile. So we'll see how that goes. Next, we have the Manifestation Sage. Blech. So, for 4 mana, all blue-green hybrids, you get a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/0 green and blue fractal token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So it's a rare. So if you don't do anything else but draw and play lands, for 4 mana, you get a 2/2, and basically like a 7/7. Or maybe a 6/6. But you're probably going to play some cards. Probably by the time you get to 4 mana, you're going to play this and probably get a 2/2. At best case scenario, a 3/3. But with that said, that's 4 mana for 5 power of creatures. And if you have more cards in your hand than that, like if you're playing cards that just let you ditch cards and draw while dealing with your opponent's problems, this thing could be devastatingly large. So this might be a card to watch, and it might be a good one. So next here we have the Kondricks Pledge Mage. 2 blue-green hybrid mana and 1 colorless for a 2/2. Magecraft, whenever you cast a spell or sorcery, play a +1/+1 counter on this card. It's a common, 3 mana for a 2/2, probably not so hot. Not really in the right colors, the kind of things you want to do. It's a creature, dies easy. Yeah, it's a common. I don't see this getting a whole lot of play. Good for draft, though. Next, Elemental Masterpiece. Red, blue, and 5. So 7 mana sorcery. You create 2 4/4s. So 7 mana, you get 8 power worth of creatures. Or you can discard it and get a treasure token. As a common, I don't see this being a thing. Maybe in draft, but even then, even in draft at 7 mana, I think there's better things you can be doing. Next, Teach by Example. So a 2 red-blue hybrid mana, instant. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets. So what you're saying to me is Fork became a common. I really think this shouldn't be a common card. I mean, the only thing that doesn't make this card higher than a common is it says your next instant or sorcery. So you can't copy your opponent's stuff like you really can with a fork, right? But let's be serious. Like, more often than not, fork is used to copy your stuff. So as a common, I don't see this being worth a lot of money because it is a common. But a foil of this card, I think might be around $5, if not more. So keep an eye on it. So next here we have the Strixhaven Stadium, 3 colorless artifact, looks like. Tap, add a colorless, put a point counter on the Haven, on the stadium. Okay. Whenever a creature does combat damage to you, remove a point counter. All right. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on the stadium. Okay. Then, if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game. Interesting. So it's an additional win condition. And I know people don't like that. But I think the caveat here is it says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a counter on the stadium. Then if you have 10 or more. So you could tap this for mana all day long and get up to 20 counters. If your creature can't get through to damage an opponent, you can't activate this. So I think this is fine. Just because of that caveat on it, it's going to make it really hard for someone to win. Because let's be honest, if they got 10 counters on this and they've got a creature on the field, it's got to be at least turn 10, 20, 15. And if you can't deal with a creature on the field by then, I think you have bigger issues, like you're probably already going to lose. Now, this in EDH, where you can just pick your players off the field, like wrap it up 10 and then send in that one creature that nobody can block to whatever that one player is at 20, 30 life who's fogging or whatever and what have you. Yeah, so this might be a little bit worth a little bit of money. Maybe not too much, but maybe a little. So we have the Archway Commons. Enters tapped. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice unless you pay 1 colorless. Oh, so it's like every other card like that. Just name something different. Oh, why they just didn't reprint it. And then add 1 mana of any color. Yeah, okay, so moving on. So here, believe it or not, this is a reflecting golem, just like it says in the title. What this says here is for 3 mana, you get a 2/3 colorless creature. It's a golem. It says whenever you target this creature with a sorcery or instant spell, you may pay 2 colorless to copy it, and then pick new targets. So, not the worst thing I've ever seen. Could be really good in draft. It might be good in standard because if you have a pump spell, you can just target this and then target it again and then target it again. Yeah, so that could be a thing. We'll see though, although with it being an artifact and a creature, it's really vulnerable. I just don't see it making too big of waves. Next here we have the Dragonetto Espalacolo, which basically means Spine Drake. And of course it has flying and death touch, and it's a 1/1 for a blue and a colorless. So it's basically an Ice Fang Collateral without flash and doesn't draw you a card for the same cost. So in other words, it sucks. Alright, moving on. Here we have the Cogwork Archivist. 6 colorless for a 4/5, way overpriced. It has reach because, sure. And for 2 and tapping it, you put a target card from your graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Okay, we'll just move on. I don't know what to say about that. It's a thing. Next here we have the Ether Helix, blue, green, and 3 colors, so it's a 5-cost sorcery. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, for 5 mana and a sorcery, I just don't see this being a thing. Because your opponent is going to get to take their turn again and relay their card. You're probably tapped out. Draft, yeah, great card. Standard, worth money, no. So, moving on. Leonine Lightscribe. So, for a white and a colorless, you get a 2/2. It has Magecraft. Whenever you cast sorcery or instant spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 to the end of turn. And it's a rare. So, once again, back to the white weenie thing I was talking about. It's going to be real easy to cast those spells that give mass pump to your whole team with this on the field and also getting mass pumps. Like, for example, if you manage, like, you start out with turn 2 with one of these and then turn 3 with another one. On turn, like, if you play a turn 1 creature, turn 2 this, turn 3 this, and another creature, you got 4 creatures and 2 of these. If nobody deals with this for whatever their reason is, like maybe a ramp deck, if ramp decks get real big, like with 2 of these on the field, and you swing with a 1/1, a 2/2, a 2/2, and a 1/1, and you cast one spell that says pump whole team +1/+1, because of these 2 cards, it's going to be a 3/3. So it will go from a 1/1, a 2/2, a 2/2, and a 1/1 to a 4/4, a 4/4, a 5/5, and a 5/5, which is 18. And then one more spell will just kill anybody. So literally a turn 4 or 5 kill. If you're playing like a ramp deck who's not going to interact with you, so forth and so on. So could it be good? Yeah, it depends on the meta. If there's a white leaning deck that creeps up and has a little bit of interaction in it, I definitely see this being a player. But I really just don't think it's better than the white card for the same cost that puts +1/+1 counters on things permanently every upkeep. However, I can see it in the same deck with it, so it could be a thing. So keep an eye on this one. It's not going to be do anything outside of standard, though. So Fervent Mastery, 2 red, 3 colorless. It says you may pay 4 red for this, or 2 red, 2 colorless rather than its mana cost. If you do, an opponent discards any number of cards and then draws that many cards. Search your library for up to 3 cards, put them into your hand, shuffle, then discard 3 cards at random. This is very situational. It could be good as far as, you know, if the opponent's tapped out, they got no cards in hand, you can play this cheaper and they can't discard to draw cards. However, if you draw 3 cards and then discard 3 cards, are you really getting anything? This might see play in Modern maybe for, like, you know, Hollow 1 decks or maybe Historic, but all in all, I just don't see this being a thing at all, especially being a sorcery. This seems awful. Moving on. Alright, so in a Rico moment, you get a blue, a green, 2 colorless. It's an instant. It says draw 2 cards. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Sweet mother of God, did they not learn from Growth Spiral? This is 2 more mana for a Growth Spiral where you get to draw 2 cards and do the same thing. I mean, yeah, by 4 mana, there's probably better stuff you could be doing, but in a ramp deck, this is just nuts. And it's a common. Like, I know it might not see a lot of play, guys, but I'm telling you, this is going to be a card in some kind of blatantly abusive deck. I could just see it now. I mean, for 3 mana, you get to draw 2 cards and you don't have to discard 1. Or just draw 2 cards. This lets you put a land into play. This is an instant. Like, ugh. This should at least be an uncommon. Ugh, I don't like this at all. Moving on. Emergent Sequence. So a green and a colorless for sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. That land becomes a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature. It's still a land, and you put a +1/+1 counter on it for each land you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn. Oh no. So they reprinted Rampant Growth with a bonus? I know what you're going to say, but wait, Clyde. If you put it on the field and it's a creature, they can kill it. So? I mean, it's basically saying that when you draw this late game, you still get a good card out of it because it's still a creature. And also on turn 2, you go, hey, lay my land, emergent sequence, lay my next land. Oh, now it's a 2/2. And if they kill it, who cares? It came out of your deck, not your hand. You're thinning your deck and your opponent loses a card out of it. Like, I just don't see how this is not a good card in any green deck, especially ramp decks. Like, we haven't had a 2 mana get a land card and put on the battlefield for a very long time for a reason. And I think this is going to be very abused. I mean, especially with the other card we just saw, you know, the 4 mana draw 2, put a land in play. I mean, imagine drawing this late game and you have the 4 mana card already in your hand just waiting because you got other stuff to play. And you're like, oh, here, I've got 5 or 6 mana now. Let me draw 2 cards, put an extra land in, put my normal land in, cast this, put this land in. I just ramped 3 lands and went from, 5 mana to 8 mana, which is Ugin mana, plus one of my dudes is a 3/3. Like, this is just going to be so abusive. It makes me a little ill, honestly. I mean, if you guys, if you didn't like Growth Spiral before, just wait till this set comes out. Anyway, moving on. So, Accomplished Alchemist. A green and 3 colorless. It's a rare for a 2/5. Not terrible stats for a rare. Pretty bad. It is an elf druid. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. Alright, so that's a bonus. Tap X mana of any one color, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. So that could definitely be a thing. I don't think life gain is going to be a real big thing in this set, but if there's a life gain deck out there that can generate good amount of life, it could be abusive, but on turn 4, like, it still got to sit out there, and it could die before turn 5. You may make an Ugin with it, but if you do, you're going to lose this creature because you're probably going to have to Ugin wipe because you're really far behind. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but I think this is a bulk bin card, just to be honest with you guys. Next one here. So this one is a modal card. We have the Echoing Equation. 2 blue, 3 colorless, sorcery. Choose target creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of it until end of turn, except that those creatures aren't legendary if a legendary creature is chosen. So it's a rare. So this is pretty sweet. You get out one big creature with a bunch of weenies. You cast this on turn 5. All of a sudden, everything's a 5/5, and you're swinging in for lethal. Could be a good card, although for blue, I don't think this is going to be a thing because blue's normally not pumping out creatures left and right. Unless that fractal deck where you just make a whole bunch of 1/1 stuff, unless that becomes a thing with blue-green. So I don't know. Well, with that said, let's look at the Druid side and see if it's any better. So the Druid here on the other side of this card is the Augmented Pugilist. 2 green and a colorless for a 3/3. Alright, it's costed correctly. It has trample, okay. As long as you control 8 or more lands, the Pugilist gets +5/+5. Sweet mother of God. So we just looked at a bunch of green cards that said mana ramp. And if you have 8 or more lands in play, you now have an 8/8 trampler. And if those lands you're putting into play are all 1/1 and 2/2 creatures that have +1/+1 counters on them, and then you draw an extra one of these cards and play the back half of one of these already on the field, those 1/1 and 2/2s all becomes copies of this, which means they're all 8/8 tramplers with counters on them, and the game ends on turn 5. So, but yeah, that you may see the blue-green beatdown deck that nobody ever wanted to see with cards like these floating around. So that might be a thing, so I'm going to keep an eye on that one. And regardless, worst case scenario, I mean, a late game card, a 3 mana for a 3/3, once you get your lands out as an 8/8 trampler, I mean, seems like some value to me. Moving on. So the next card we got here is not English. Surprise. All right. Checking my notes here. It says that this is the Body of Research. Capro di Investigational. Sounds about right. So for 3 blue and 3 green, it's a mythic. What it reads is you make your blue-green fractal, it's a sorcery, with +1/+1 counters. So you make a 0/0 fractal creature with +1/+1 counters equal to the number of cards in your library. For the love of God, is removal going to have to be a thing in this new set? I mean, people are going to have to be running eliminates left and right to deal with these kind of things, because this is nuts. I mean, you're talking like on turn 6, you're making a 50/50 creature. Like, it's got to die. Because if not, all it takes is one card that says trample, and you lose. So, yeah. Just yeah. Anyway, moving on. So, next we have a common, Letter of Acceptance. 3 colorless mana for an artifact. Tap for 1 mana of any color. Already like it. Pretty sweet. 2 mana, tap, sacrifice Letter of Acceptance to draw a card. Now, this is a good common. It's 3 mana, so the rock it can't ramp you really fast to get things, way out of control. It gives you 1 of any color, so it's mana fixing, so it's fair for the high cost. Plus, later in the game, when it's not needed, you can sacrifice it to draw. This is a sweet card that's not overpowered. So I really do like this. Will it see a lot of play in Standard? Probably not. But at the same time, it's still a really good card. And in draft, this is going to be a must draft. just because of mana fixing and drawing, and yeah, it's just it does it all. So moving on. Here we have the team pennant. One colorless for the artifact equipment. It says equip creature gets +1/+1. It has vigilance and trample. Okay. Oh, look, there we go. Equip creature token for 1. Equip anything else for 3. So you remember that 50/50 I just talked about you can make on turn 6? Yeah, you play this, you stick it on the field, it's a token for 1, you slap this thing on it. It's now a 51/51 with vigilance and trample, game's over. If they can't kill it. So I got a feeling somebody's going to make that deck just because it's annoying and they can. So anyway, moving on. Next here, another blue-green card, blue-green hybrid in 1 for an instant. Target creature has base power and toughness of 4/4 to end of turn. Decent common, could be a thing. I could definitely see it be good in draft. But other than that, I don't see too much play getting too much play out of this one. Moving on, Serpentine Curve. So this one is a blue and 3 colorless for sorcery. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal again. And this time you put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is 1 plus the total number of instant and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. Good lord. So basically, yeah, this thing could be huge for 4 mana. Yeah, I like that. Like that little. Once I done math bites. Anyway, definitely a great card for draft, depending on how your deck's built, and might be a thing in standard. I honestly don't think so, unless there's a really big, instant sorcery deck, which I think there will be. But this might not make the cut because there are a lot of other good cards that go in it. So, moving on. Expel, a white 2 colors, exile target tapped creature. So, for a common, this is a really good card. You have exile, so the creature can't come back. It doesn't go in the graveyard. It's an instant. Yeah, pretty good powerhouse. I think it's going to be good removal for draft. It may even see a little bit of standard play if the guys playing white are not playing black. If they're playing a different color, if they're playing red, this ain't going to see play probably. Maybe sideboard. But if they're playing some weird white thing or a mono white deck, this will probably see a little bit of play depending on what's out there. Next here we have the Mathematician. Wow. 1 green, 1 colorless, and 1 for a 2/2. When he enters the battlefield, you create a 0/0 green and blue fractal again, and then put a +1/+1 counter on each fractal you control. So in standard, not a thing. In draft, definitely a thing. Imagine drafting like 8 of these in a draft pod. I mean, they're common. It's possible. You get 8 of these things, and on turn 3, you just start. And I got a 1/1. I got 1/1/1 and a 2/2. And then next turn, you cast another one. Now I've got 2 2/2s and 2 other 2/2s. And then 3 3s. And then, yeah, so you get the picture. This could be just nuts in draft if you get like 8 of these. Oh my god. It'd be so funny. Next here, we have the Kondricks Cultivator. A blue-green hybrid mana, a green mana, and 1. So 4 total for a 3/4. So pretty good for the cost. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic forest or island card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Oh, for the love of Christ. Did we not just have the conversation about how bad ramp is going to be? Not only in this video, but in the last video. If you haven't seen it, go check that one out too, because there's more of this. Turtle Druid, that's funny. But anyway, guys, seriously though, 4 mana for a 3/4 that lets you ramp, I would play this all day long. This is just bonkers good. I mean, talk about deck thinning between this and Fabled Passage and all the other green stuff we just talked about. I mean, wow. I think this is a good card. This is a really good card. So, moving on. My second thought, look for the foil of this. It's going to be expensive. Moving on. Alright, we have Rare Mythic finally. Something not blue-green. Crackle with Power. Oh, here's the one that they were talking about. They spoiled with 3 X's in its cost. So 2 red and 3 X's. So you got to have at least 5 mana to cast this thing. So Crackle with Power deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X targets. Holy. Wow. So for 5 mana, you do 5 damage to a target. It's a sorcery. This card is amazing. Because if you don't have 5 mana, let's say you have 8 mana, and you yeah, is it 8? 1, 2, 4, 6. Yeah. So for 8 mana, you could deal 5 damage. No. His power deals 5 times X. It's X targets. Each of X target. So if you cast this for 8, you can do, since it's 2, you 5 times, that's 10. You can do 10 damage to 2 different targets. Like 2 of these in a deck, if you get to enough mana, you can literally just blow your opponent off the table, nothing but smoke and boots left. While obviously destroying anything that they ever possibly could play. I mean, 10 damage to a planeswalker pretty much is going to kill it. I think this card's got a lot of promise, especially with all the ramp stuff going on. Like, slide 1 or 2 of these into the blue-green ramp deck, and then just Fable passes out your mountains and be like, hey, guess what? You're dead. So, I think this is going to be a good card. I don't think it's going to see any play outside of Standard, but while it's in Standard, this could be expensive. But when the rotation gets close, this thing's going to drop like a rock, because Modern's not going to play something like this. All right, so moving on. Next here we have, what this says. What it actually says is decisive rejection for a blue and a green. So once again, we're back to more of the good old Kondricks mana ramp silliness. So this card here is an instant. It says you get to choose one. Target creature you control fights a creature you don't control. Already good for 2 mana, and it's an instant. Or you can counter a non-creature card unless the opponent pays 3 colorless mana. For an uncommon, wow, is this busted. I mean, it's a fight spell and basically a mana leak all in one for 2 mana. God, is this good. My God, is this good. I know it's only an uncommon, guys, but I'm telling you, this is going to be a thing. This thing is so bonkers. I mean, you've seen all the cards we went through so far with this, and this is a powerhouse. I mean, wow. So really like this card. I don't think it's overpowered either because the fight doesn't give anything extra. It's just a fight effect. And the fight effect might not be good if you don't have enough creatures, but it gives you the ability to use it as a counter as well. Lots of good utility. Very powerful card. Again, this is going to be one I think the foil will be worth a lot of money. I think this has got a lot of promise. I like this card a lot. So, guys, that's it for the video. That's all the cards we got spoiled today. I'd like to thank you guys for showing up and listening to me and what I'm talking about and seeing all these nice, cool spoiled cards. Until next time, gotta say it again, like and subscribe. Tell your friends and family. Support the channel. It's all said and done. Let's get out there. Let's play some Magic. Let's hit a pre-release. Let's sit down, play Magic in person with people, with real cards. It's coming up. Gen Con's on the horizon, guys. Look for me there. If you're going, let me know. Give me your thoughts down below on the comments of what you thought of the cards. Heck, tell me what you think about Gen Con. You going to go to Gen Con? I might see you there. I'll be making videos. With that said, this is the captain speaking. Remember, be kind, and I'll see you next time.